My book is really an invitation to say to you, reader, sister, friend, let me hold your hand because I've been there and you are not alone. Because this human experience is designed in a way for our suffering, but it's not designed for us to stay there. We have agency, we have choice, we have responsibility to do with that what we choose. And we have to go in, not around, and do the work. And when we do that, that activates us, I think, into radiant joy and radiant bliss and empowerment, because nobody can tell us what we don't already fucking know about ourselves. Like if we looked at our own shadows and we own them and integrate them, to use your word, and I use that word integration throughout the book, we kind of become unstoppable. And when we're unstoppable in our light and our true identity, we can do some really big work in this world.
Jessica Zweig, welcome back to Passion, Love, Pursuit podcast. The last time we connected was, it seems, I don't know, was it a few years ago when you released your other book, B, which is the No Bullshit Guide to being basically authentically you in building your business, your brand, and just really rooting into all that you are in all aspects. But now bringing you back on the show is to talk about your newest book, which is The Light Work, which I'm so excited for this conversation. I've dived into most of the book, and what I've seen of you online and also having you on the show previously, you were shining your light very brightly. I am so inspired by you in your radiance. And after reading this book, I just feel just so much more connected to you and your humanness. And in this book, you dive into the darkness that some possibly didn't see. But if anything, it is a way to really give people the permission to be who they are, the light, the dark, and not feel shame anymore about it. And so I'm excited to have you on and dive more deeper into your journey and who you've become today. So welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. And, what you just articulated about how the book made you feel less alone, a permission to be all that you are, to hold it in your hands, not just to see my story, but to feel a reflection of your own story, is truly my intention of why I wrote this book. And I just want to thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I think is really common that a lot of people don't talk enough about is actually, and this especially speaking to women, is how so many women do feel burnout or a lack of joy or just running on the hamster wheel, to achieve the next thing and the next thing. And I would love to hear your journey of this, because I know you speak so deeply about this and really what was going on behind the scenes of launching a best-selling book, building a very successful personal branding agency that you've now sold, which is so exciting. But I would love to hear your experience of burnout and really what that revealed in you, in your darkness, if you want to say.
It's an amazing question. So I think it's important to note, and I start my first book, B, with the story of how I went broke at 33 years old and had to ask my parents to help me pay my phone bill because I couldn't. AT&T was going to shut me off, and they had no idea the dire financial predicament that I was in, and just what that rock bottom moment really left in me. When you go full up, belly up, broke, it is a traumatic life event, and that trauma lived in my body, and I was pretty unaware of how deeply that had impacted my system. And nonetheless, I moved forward with my life and started another company after I kind of unburied myself from the debt. And that company, SimplyBe, took off right away. I had, made $1 million in less than a year and a half. I was scaling it rapidly, became a multi-7-figure business in less than 5 years, had built this massive team, got the book deal, was winning awards, opened up 2 offices. And in hindsight, like looking back, and the whole book is a reflection looking back, I was so unconscious that I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in abundance now. Look at my life. Look at my business. But I was never really in abundance. I was really just running away from scarcity and going broke again. Like I didn't want to die. I was in a survival mechanism throughout my entire rocket ship of that company. And there's no sustaining that. I crashed and I burned. I hit a burnout year where I was unable to get out of bed for months at a time, was diagnosed with situational depression from my therapist, was rageful, was not nice, was just this dark, bitchy version of myself while having to uphold and maintain this identity of this like high vibes, positive, bright yellow chick on Instagram. And during the research of this book, The Light Work, and also through my own just healing journey and, going to Egypt and working with my own coaches myself, I've really uncovered so much truth around the system that we as women are hooked into, and how it's really a game that none of us were designed like physiologically to play. And you can call it the toxic masculine, you can call it internalized patriarchy, you can call it the matrix. I think all of those are accurate statements that we are benchmarking our lives against, and women are suffering. I can't tell you, Erica, how many women I talk to on a regular basis that are beautiful entrepreneurs who are miserable, who want to burn their businesses down, who are exhausted, who don't feel inspired by it, who don't have any joy, who want to sell it to get rid of it. Like, it is wild to me, and also not, that this is the common epidemic that everyone's suffering, I think, so silently. And I, wrote this book. This book speaks of many things, not just, physical burnout, but, unpacking the layers of what's led us to feel like we have to win, that we have to succeed, that our life's worth is dependent upon accolades and money and credibility and, platform. It's just, I just am really wanting to, at least in my own way, pull behind the curtain and say, ladies, there's a better way to do this, one that is more innate to who we are as feminine bodies. And yeah, so that's the answer to that question. It's a really great question.
Yeah, and I think I really relate to this because I know I'm, driven. I'm a very driven, ambitious
So
woman, and I seek to, yeah, which I'm sure many women listening are as well. And we seek to succeed, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think how things have really turned in the world is this whole like woman boss, entrepreneur can, reach the highest high with their businesses. And that's all great and good. But I think, as you kind of alluded to, is being in our feminine, the natural feminine essence is more in flow, in joy, in ease, really embodied. And I think when we're in that kind of mindset to succeed, we're in this hustle and grind, which is very masculine. And so I think there has to be this turn-off switch. Like, we have to return to the feminine essence of who we are. And so, speaking about burnout, of course, we don't want to hit rock bottom, right? That's not the goal. So how can we be more aware of when we are on the verge of burnout? Because we still want to be entrepreneurs. We still want to pursue success. But how can we ensure that we don't hit this rock bottom? What are the signs, if you would say?
Yeah, I would say, let's just start with the basics. Like, are you getting enough rest? When 7 to 9, ideally for me, 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. And if you're waking up in the morning and you're hitting the alarm, you're dragging yourself out of bed, not only physically you're exhausted, but mentally and emotionally you feel heavy from the second you open your eyes. If your day feels heavy, if you don't have space to really breathe, take a walk, get outside, break up your day so that you're nourishing your body, drinking water, slowing down when you eat and chew your food, though, having these wall-to-wall days where you feel like you can't breathe, that looking truly just at the basics of your schedule, truly simplifying the practice of joy. Are you laughing? Are you dancing? Are you taking walks in nature? Are you trying new restaurants and going to comedy shows or plays or movies? Like decorating your life with things that and people that really nourish your soul. I mean, for me, Erica, there was a significant period of my life for years where none of that existed. It was work, 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 work. I think really looking at your mood, for me, when I am tired and I'm burnt out, I turn into a bitch. I am not kind. I am not patient. I am sassy. I am short. My husband gets the brunt of it, but I'm also just like not kind to like the Uber drivers, like we are designed to be connected to human beings in this beautiful planet of oneness and humanity. And if we're really missing the true simple connections and moments of joy and presence, if you're not present, I mean, if you're constantly future tripping, if you're constantly thinking about what you have to do, if you're like multitasking all the time, those are all telltale signs that you're already hitting burnout or you're about to hit burnout. I mean, burnout is a loaded word, and I want to say one last thing about this, because there was a lot of times where I was like, I think I'm burnt out, and I didn't listen, and I just kept plowing through. There was a period in the winter of 22 where I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't shower. I couldn't get out of bed. I cried every day for 3 months from the depression. Like that is full on mental, physical, emotional, spiritual depletion. And so just sleep, eat, nourish, space, joy, like self-awareness, therapists, good friends, coaches, accountability, and ultimately, and this is the last thing I'll say, is, and I hope my book really helps women truly reclaim their feminine and to say, fuck this system. This is not how I'm going to play the game. So I stand, my case.
I am with you, sister. Like, I put a lot of, and again, I think a lot of people can relate to this. I put a lot of pressure on myself to get it done, right? To like stay, true to my goals and commitments and everything. And there's great, like, that's great. Work ethic is everything, I think. But I think we also, on the flip side, need to give ourselves permission to not need to do it all, to permission to maybe, for example, I'm not going to really share this quite yet, but I'm kind of marinating on the idea, which I haven't done this in over 5 years, putting a slight pause on my podcast.
Wow.
The reason being, I'm in a new season, stepping into marriage. What's that?
I said, you're getting married. Your wedding. I can't wait to see your wedding dress.
Yeah. So you're so cute. Thank you. But yeah, so I'm giving myself permission and leading into, okay, what is my guidance telling me to do? What is right in this season? And stop putting the pressure on needing to stay to my commitment, because I've been that way. Like, I'm so committed to my goals and what I say I'm going to do. But I'm also like, wait, I need to honor, what are my gifts to bring into the world? What season am I in? What do I need most right now? And so I love what you're sharing, especially in this book and in your messaging today, is giving us the permission to return to what is best for us at the present time, the
Yep.
season we're in, and also carrying that forward in our everydays. And so let's kind of unpack this. But first, we must go into your journey, most importantly, because you had a wonderful trip that really transformed your whole entire identity and life. And so I'd love to unpack it a little bit. I know there's a lot in this. And by the way, I don't know if I told you, one of my closest friends actually lives half of the year in Egypt. So we've
Wow.
been meaning to visit there for years now, but she's actually there right now. But
Wow.
she is there half the year. And so it's interesting to hear how much Egypt transformed your life. And we've been meaning to get there for years and years now. So this inspires me even more to get there sooner. But let's go into your journey. So Jessica before, and then Jessica, who you transformed into today, you had a journey that brought you here. So if you kind of give us a glimpse, I know there's a lot and it's in your book, more into detail, but just a glimpse of what happened.
So I had been running my agency for 5, 6 years at that point, 6 years. And, I was like bright yellow hair, big, bold yellow blazers, you know, the coffee slamming, hustle leader, boss babe, avatar. And I planned this trip to Egypt a year before I went. My best friend and I, we always love to take an international trip. And we planned Egypt very randomly because we wanted to check it out. It sounded cool, having no idea personally what was in store for me in this country. I've been to 35 countries, maybe more at this point, and love to travel. And no place had ever, I say that Egypt fucks up your life in the most beautiful way. I got on that plane to Cairo for a 15-day spiritual pilgrimage and came back home 15 days later a different person. And essentially, I would love for your listeners to go read the book because I explain what happened there in mass detail. But every day on this trip is a temple visit. It's not a vacation. You're up at 4 or 5, sometimes 3 in the morning, getting to these temples before sunrise so that you have private access. So it's a very aggressive, at least we went with a group of 17 people guided by these like mystics that had kind of the inside, into these temples at certain times and places. We got to go to parts of these temples that traditional tourists don't get to go to. And you have experiences in these temples. These temples are alive. They're ancient. The walls have vibrational codes. You are having psychedelic visualizations, physical experiences, mental, emotional, audible. You hear things, you see things that sound like, when you tell them, like you are on drugs, but you're not. You're completely sober. And I had many experiences, very significant. It sort of collected like a crescendo over those 15 days. Like each temple, you sort of pick up a piece of yourself. You get specific information. And it was at the sort of second half of the trip where we went to a temple called Dendera, which is the temple of Hathor. And Hathor is the goddess of bliss. And I had the biggest experience of all the temples in that temple, where I got struck by white lightning in a private chamber. And when I say I got struck by white lightning, it's like, no, I actually, white lightning hit my body, and I dissolved, and my whole body just went out into the universe. I left the building, I left the planet, and I started communicating and hearing voices of what I consider to be a galactic kind of star family called the Pleiadians, which are connected to the Hathors, according to text and history and research. And also I knew that going in. And they gave me all of these messages. They shared things with me that I wrote down this in my iPhone the second night, like messages I'll never, ever forget. And those messages have gone into my book. And in addition, what I also believe happened in that moment was my DNA upgraded. I actually shifted my cellular makeup, and I transformed a whole new identity, and by shedding an old identity. And what continued to happen over the next couple of days after that experience was even more wild. Like, that sounds wild. That was just the beginning. That was the opening. And when I came home from Egypt, I came home new. Everyone was like, how was it? I said, the only way I can describe it is I am new. And it was from that moment forward that everything in my life changed. I sold my company. I wrote this book. I healed my nervous system. I started coaching women, on their businesses and their brands and spirituality, sold out retreats, like everything that I had been calling in for. My higher soul's calling and purpose started to accelerate. And I know this all sounds really wild and crazy, but that's what happened. That it happened.
Yeah, and like you said, Jessica, that a lot of the stories are in this book, and like I said, I'm almost done with the book, and so I know some of the experiences you had, and it's quite wild. But I remember actually on social media, I remember when you shared that one picture of a friend took a picture just all of a sudden when light was actually
Yes.
directly pointing
Yes.
into your body. I remember when you shared that, and I was like, wow, that's what a capture. But then now you're sharing your experience of the whole trip. And so it's fascinating. Well, I would love to unpack your book a little bit because there's so many amazing tangible tools we could take into our life, because not all of us could go to Egypt to experience this wild transformation and, transform into a new version of who we wish to become, right? Did you want to include something in there?
No, I'm just so glad you said that, because I say in the book, like, this book isn't here to convince you to go buy a plane ticket. This book is here for you to
Right.
hold in your hands the keys right now. So just thank you for saying that, because I really hold that as a huge intention with this book. This book is very tactical and immediately implementable. So I just thank you for reflecting that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, your book is called The Light Work, but it is more about doing, if you want to say, the dark work. And it's really revisiting the dark places, those places we've shamed and pushed away that we no longer want to look at. But truly, for us to reveal the light within us, we need to be willing to face and transmute and integrate those dark pieces of us that we've shunned away, if you want to say. And so if you could kind of explain how this serves us, and what was your experience going into those dark places again that you've shamed away, if you want to say, that you no longer wanted to be a part of you.
I'm actually getting a little emotional, Erica, because you really read this book, and it's verbatim what I have been saying on so many podcasts. What you just said, I said I wrote a book about light, but it could actually be called The Dark Work, because that's really what this book is about. And you just said that, so thank you for really getting it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very sensitive when it comes to the spiritual conversation and narrative around love and light, and just, oh, bless that person, or gratitude is the attitude. Everything happens for a reason. Like, bypassing is not healthy. It's actually the antithesis, I believe, of the work, when we just skate over hard feelings. So in writing this book, I was very intentional, knowing this is a spiritual book, to not make it light, to make it deep and honest about the human experience, specifically as a female in your own human experience. And there are common themes I believe we all have as women when it comes to the hard things we face, namely our romantic relationships and our female friendships and our body images and our, personal power as women, and our businesses and how we relate to the energy of money as women, and our family trauma. And I just I felt like such a responsibility in writing a book about light, that I had to address the dark, because there's that quote by Rumi, like the 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 wound or something, like the light gets in through the cracks in the dark.
Right.
Something like that. Like that's where the light is found. And so my book is really an invitation to say to you, reader, sister, friend, let me hold your hand, because I've been there and you are not alone. Because this human experience is designed in a way for our suffering, but it's not designed for us to stay there. We have agency, we have choice, we have responsibility to do with that what we choose. And we have to go in, not around, and do the work. And when we do that, that activates us, I think, into radiant joy and radiant bliss and empowerment, because nobody can tell us what we don't already fucking know about ourselves. Like if we looked at our own shadows and we own them and integrate them, to use your word, and I use that word integration throughout the book, we kind of become unstoppable. And when we're unstoppable in our light, in our true identity, we can do some really big work in this world. And that's our responsibility to do that work. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that reflection, because it's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. And I think, again, you're giving people permission that, to no longer shame away parts of you, because I think you can't love yourself by hating parts of you.
Correct.
And I would love to reiterate these words in your book, because this kind of explains it pretty well when it comes to the light and the dark. Is the darkness is not a nuisance, it's our gift. When we navigate the darkness with greater self-responsibility, personal empowerment, and support from our healers and guides, we awaken into becoming fully activated, integrated, authentic, powerful, and sovereign beings. We become light workers. And so that's really what this work is about. So I'd love to dive a little deeper into this and what it looks like of revealing the light within us by being able to look at our dark places and the parts of us that we've rejected. And I share this a lot, that self-acceptance is the pathway to self-love, because I feel that if we can't come to a place where we fully accept everything that has brought us here, we'll be hating parts of us that have made us who we are today. So I'd love to hear what you feel about this. And I know you share a lot about personal responsibility. And to me, that is where our biggest transformation comes in, is when we are taking responsibility for the part we play in our own madness. And so personal responsibility, self-acceptance, putting those two together, what would you say about this as you speak about this in your book as well?
I think personal responsibility, like I'll even use the word radical responsibility, is one of, if not the biggest unlock to your own personal growth. And it's the hardest. It's the hardest shit, because you have to look at yourself in the mirror and acknowledge your neediness, your drama, your, ego, your comparisonitis, your lonely, like it's messy, the human experience. And radical responsibility requires us to hold up a mirror to where we're not showing up in our highest selves. And that can happen in an instant, and that can take an entire lifetime. I just want to say that. I'll just use an example from the book, right? So I have a whole chapter about relationships, and I've been married, with my amazing husband for 12 years. I met him when I was 30. But in my 20s, all I wanted was the Romeo and Juliet type of like love affair, with tons of drama and hot sex and longing and, the roller coaster, and was at the end of the day, I was unconscious of this during those relationships, was looking for that person to complete me. I didn't know who I was without a boyfriend. And I had a very traumatic breakup after my longest relationship in my 20s. We were together for 5 years, and we ended that relationship, and I shattered into trillions of pieces and didn't know who I was for about a year and a half. And it was during that healing from that breakup, it was basically the time between I meeting my husband, like I broke up with this guy and met Brian about 2.5 years later, that I had to really face my desire and longing for a codependent, addictive relationship. Like, that's what I wanted. That's all that I knew. And I say in the book, I had to not look at the boyfriend, the toxic relationship, even the breakup. I had to look at myself and understand where that deep void was coming from in the first place. Like, why did I have such an insatiable appetite to get lost in another person? Because I didn't feel like I was whole. That's why. And that journey towards wholeness is a lifelong journey. But in those 2 years, I committed to that journey of finding my wholeness and got to a place, because I was able to take radical responsibility for that, that my longing and fears of being lonely came from something deeply missing in me that I had never, ever addressed. And I addressed it, and it was hard. It was week after week of therapy and lots of tears and journaling and traveling with my girlfriends and yoga and feeling and eating my kitchen certain nights because I was trying to fill the void, right? Like, and then binging. Like, it was dark at times trying to navigate through that. But I got to a place where I didn't really want a boyfriend. I was like, I don't want a boyfriend actually at all after 2 years of doing that healing work. And that's when I called in a partner who had done his work. And, I wouldn't say the rest is history, but I unpack all of this in the book. And so, I think radical responsibility is what it takes. And it's not a straight line, but it's, I think, the biggest flex a light worker can take.
I completely agree. And I completely relate to your journey in relationship, because that was very much my experience as well. And, if the person listening to this right now has not got to the place where they feel really comfortable in who they are and safe and sound being alone, I think that's when we really need to start questioning why. Because I know there's a lot of people that, and I get it, if you're an extrovert, you want to be around people and that fills your cup. That's one thing. But I think there's people that have a hard time being alone. And I think if you have a hard time being alone, I think you should ask yourself the question, why? And I think that could possibly lead to answering, like, do you have a dependency on somebody else filling up your cup? So I very much understand and relate to a lot of the things you shared in that regard. So how do we reclaim those parts of us that feel lost? And how do we reveal really the true essence of who we are?
It's a big question, Erica.
I know. As I ended it, I'm like, that's a loaded question.
I will only speak from my experience, because I'm, not a licensed therapist. I'm not a trauma expert. I'm just here as Jessica, living out my own human experience. I honestly believe that what's revealed my truest self and has allowed me to reclaim parts of myself that I forgot is when life brought me to my knees and I chose to look at it and go in, not around. And I did that through the support of really good friends. I did that through the support of really good therapists and healers. I did that through my own meditation and spiritual practice. I did that through listening into consuming podcasts and books like this one and yours and mine. I committed to using it as a tool for my own growth versus being a victim to what was happening to me and seeing it that it was happening for me. And I'll just say that if you're listening to this and you are drawn to this conversation and you feel a rumbling inside of you, especially around the conversation we were having at the beginning part of this show around the masculine, the toxic hustle culture, I'm assuming most of your listeners are women, leaning into that and really doing some investigation on the paradigm we're living in right now that is an illusion. There's something, I believe, inviting you to understand more deeply around the feminine values of not just who you are, but how this world is supposed to be structured. Like, let me give you a very random example, okay? So I was, I'm staying here at this hotel. I'm in Atlanta right now for a bit of a travel tour. And I was in my robe last night around 10:30 at night, and I needed water. I drank all the bottled water in my room. So I go downstairs in my robe, didn't even put clothes on, threw on my shoes, my sneakers and my robe, and I bought some water behind the desk. Well, the key card getting up to my room wasn't working in the elevator. So I was like, oh shoot, I got to get a new key. So I walk right back to the desk. I'm like, hi, I need another key. And the guy behind the counter was like, do you have your ID on you? I'm like, my ID's in my room. I'm staying here. I'm in a robe, like I'm a guest. And then he started asking me questions like, my assistant made this reservation for me and she put it on her Bonvoy account. And because I didn't know the last 4 digits to this, anyway, he's like, okay, well, we're going to have security walk you up to your room and you'll have to show security your ID once you get up to your room with him. And my point is, Erica, like, I was so neutral about it. Of course, what am I going to do? But it was just observing humanity. And I'm like, we have so lost trust in one another, in humanity. And so my essence is love. My essence is oneness. My essence is brotherhood, sisterhood. Like, I want to go back to your question, which is a loaded question.
Of course.
But my point in that story is like bringing awareness to just what doesn't really seem to make sense and choosing to operate from a different way and capacity in your own interactions, in your own life, how you treat people. To me, that's the reclaiming of the feminine.
I love that.
So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. Is, even with other people's reactions, like, how are you showing up? What is in alignment with the person you want to be in this world? What brings you light? What brings you joy? And what brings you peace? And being that, and always returning to that, because I do think it's a practice, that embodiment with that awareness. I would love to, because I really want to honor your time, but the most important thing I want to talk about is joy. Joy. We need more of it. I think a lot of people seek it, but a lot of people don't have it. And actually, I want to share this. It happens to be on my desk, so I'm going to share this. This just downloaded from me last week because my focus right now is joy and peace. And so I was thinking about this, and I'm just going to share this really briefly. So they always told us to seek joy, but I rather create joy. I don't need to seek something outside of me. I get to create and magnify what is in me and from me. My joy, my bliss, my own version of what joy feels like to me. No longer will I seek joy. I will create and cultivate it with every fiber of my own being and attract more joyful moments like this. And I'm sharing this because I think we are the ones that need to create the joy within us. And this is what I think when I think of your book and your messaging, and also my messaging, is we get to cultivate what we seek to be in the world, and it comes through us. And it doesn't need to be something acquired from the outside to become it, if you want to say. And so, talking about joy, because you share in the book that joy is really the path to being a light worker. And that's really what helps us really know what we are in alignment with. And so, what is your advice to cultivating more joy into your life and bringing it at the forefront in our everyday?
So I love that quote. Thank you for sharing that. I say that joy is your birthright. It's what you were put here to express. Back to that temple when I got struck by white lightning and I heard all of those messages from the Pleiadians, their main message to me was, you've missed the whole plot, Jessica, of this human experience. And it is to enjoy it. It is to have fun. And they said to me, you get to snuggle your puppies and make love to someone you love and wear cute clothes and travel the world and follow a purpose and eat good food. Every moment of this human experience is a gift. And if you don't enjoy it for you, will you please enjoy it for us? Because we can't be down there. But you're missing it, Jessica. You're missing it. And there's another Pleiadian philosophy called thought creates. Our thoughts create our world. Our thoughts create our reality. And it's not as simple, I think, as flipping a switch. I've been diagnosed with depression. I understand how difficult it can be to just choose joy. But it is a practice. And if we can find the joy in the smallest of things and attune our mind to be grateful and to be present to the things that do bring us the smallest, even if it's the smallest little, like I'm drinking my water right now out of my Stanley and it got a yummy electrolyte in it. And I can enjoy that, and really be present to it. It's the holiest practice. It is, I think, a daily devotion and a sacred commitment to choose joy.
Yeah.
And when that really turns on, I think, in your body and your system, your life does begin to shift and flow and align in a more powerful capacity.
I like to say we need to schedule joy too, because I
That's
think
true.
we schedule our work, we schedule calls or whatnot, we schedule possibly going to the gym. Why wouldn't we schedule joy? And so I invite people to schedule joy, because I know our schedule will always fill up, and that's why we have to be intentional. It's a practice to put joy into our life, but joy looks different for everybody. And so I would love to hear kind of segue into, because I think this is really tangible for our listeners. What were some of the habits you needed to let go of, former Jessica, and what are some new habits you had to implement to create more joy, more alignment, more purpose, more happiness into your life?
I did exactly what you just said. I scheduled it. I color coded my calendar on Google. So like work was blue, play was pink, self-love was yellow, workouts were green. My whole calendar had to look like a rainbow. I drew massive boundaries. I closed my computer at 3, 4, 5. Sometimes I was working till 7, 8, 9. Closed my computer at certain times, took walks in nature daily. I literally practiced boredom. Like I read about boredom being like a meditation where I would sit on my bed and just stare at the ceiling. Literally like just practicing boredom. I really took, I just had moved to Nashville. I was researching, ecstatic dance parties, comedy shows, plays, great new restaurants, farmers markets, like really trying to just immerse myself in things that just were new and stimulating to my brain and body. Really nature, just got out into it as much as I possibly could. Joy is simple, like friendships, partnerships, family, time with my animals, like that was all my job, more so than my executive meetings.
I love it. I love it. Well, I really want to honor your time. There's so much more goodness we could get into, but I think the first place I'm going to lead people is to get your book, The Light Work. This comes out August
6th.
6th. Okay. But I do want to mention, because this episode is actually going to be coming out next week. So when everybody's listening to it, it's out, obviously. But you have something really exciting coming up. So I want you to invite people to join. Obviously, everything will be in the show notes as well. But if you could mention your event coming up. And
thank you. So I am hosting the live virtual event of the summer. It's going to be a 5-hour global summit. And it is with Michael Beckwith, who's like the OG of spirituality, Koya Webb, who's an expert in all things wellness, and my friend Danielle Page, who's an astrologer. The four of us are live streaming for 5 hours on August 8th, which is technically called Lionsgate, which is a very spiritual portal activation all around money and wealth and abundance. And it is a deeply activating day. We're going to be bringing you 5 hours of business training, feminine leadership mastery, spiritual activations, physical upgrades, astrology readings. It's going to be insane. It is happening on August 8th, 2 days after the book comes out. The ticket is $35 and it includes the book. So it's it's a no-brainer. And you can go to jessicazweig.com/breakthrough. That's where I would send people to register for the event and join us on August 8th.
Amazing. Well, everybody, that's your invitation. So everything will be in the show notes. Jessica, I adore you. I just so see you and I adore you. I just really respect and appreciate everything that you are. And I just thank you for sharing your heart and your truth and revealing to us every part of you.
Thank you.
Because I think there's such beauty in everything that you are, and you're such an inspiration. So I just thank you. And this work is needed right now. And so everybody, reclaim your feminine power, live your cosmic truth, and illuminate the world. Get the book, The Light Work. Thank you, Jessica, for everything. I appreciate you.
So welcome. Thank you for having me, Erica. It's always a delight to be with you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.